This is a quick video highlighting some of the books in the college library that you might want to engage with depending on what you are writing about. So the first set to show you is in the Black Culture Resource Center here. So a few books that can be very interesting to look at. This one by Bev Tatum, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? It's a really interesting analysis of the ways that segregation and self-segregation play into students' experiences of school. Another one, there's a copy of Savage Inequalities right here. Savage Inequalities is a book by Jonathan Kozol that highlights the massive material inequalities in the United States. A lot of it is still very, very current. There's also a copy of Pedagogy of the Oppressed right here, which we'll be reading a little bit of in class. So these are some that are in the Black Cultural Resource Center that you might want to look at. To show you where the education section is, if you were to walk out of the Black Cultural Resource Center and into the stacks, the education section is really nearby. You're going to see stuff LB to ML and KF to LB. These two places are where you're going to find most of the education-related books in the library. I want to highlight a few books, and I'm sorry this is going to be kind of a strange video, but I do just want to show where a few of these things are. So we're two kind of shelves in. Mortimer Adler had this thing, the Paideia Proposal, that was discussed in our reading. He thought everybody should be taught the same thing up through 12th grade. That might be an interesting book if you want to critique that idea or agree with that idea. It's right here. It's called the Paideia Proposal by Mortimer Adler. This is an anarchist text called Deschooling Society. Illich thought that a kind of standardized schooling was a terrible idea, and that basically kids and adults should be allotted credits that they can use to study the kinds of things that they want to study. So everyone should study the same thing. Everyone should have a choice of what they study, and school shouldn't be standardized at all. If you're interested in the history of teaching, this is a fantastic book called The Teacher Wars. It's a history of teaching in the United States as well as labor relations. Diane Ravitch is also a historian of education. If you're interested in the history of education, that might be a book to look at. So this is all in the LA section of the library. One that I want to highlight, this would be hard to write on, but this is a memoir by Frank McCourt. He's the one who wrote Angela's Ashes. He was a teacher until he was like 70 or 80 and then started writing novels. This is a fantastic memoir on writing teaching in New York City, United States. Okay, a few others to highlight. This is a book, a collection of Montessori's writings on Montessori education. We've also just got a big section on Montessori teaching, if that's something that you are interested in. This here is a short text by John Dewey called The School and the Society. You can also see we've got a big section on Dewey. If you're interested in this idea of democratic education, how does democracy or how does society relate to the classroom, you might want to check out some writings of Dewey. This really short book, which is published by Modern Library, by the way, we're in the LB section now, has got a bunch of short writings by Dewey, so that might be one to check out. John Holt might be one to look at if you're interested in homeschooling. Or just kind of alternative visions of school. He's a big advocate of homeschooling and also school choice, which is generally the government should support alternative kinds of schooling, especially through funding charter schools. He might not have liked charter schools himself, but his writings are used for that. If you're interested in this debate on charter schools, this section right here on choice in education, choice is sort of a code word for charter schools in general. That's still in the LB section. Heading in, or still in the LB section, we've got a lot of stuff on Piaget. This one right here, Piaget for the Classroom Teacher, might be a really good one to look at if you're interested in looking at more of Piaget's work. A few others to point out. Sorry, I tried to pull a lot of these. This section, LC, has a lot on not just feminist perspectives on education and feminist pedagogies. There's also a lot on the history of educating women and girls in the United States in this section. A really interesting paper might be looking at what the future of teaching of girls and women might be, kind of starting with where we are right now. Education is changing. What education means is really changing. How does a continued struggle for equality in education look, given what's what's sort of up right now? Final one, this is just another copy of Savage Inequalities, which can be a really great book if you are interested in the material inequalities that are there in schools in the U.S. So we're now in the LC section. Really encourage you to make an appointment and to just browse this section and see if something jumps out to you. We've got a really great collection, and it's really worth looking into.